SPZ flatland.
Before we go on to that,
No.
Ma, just raise, there was discussion about having an assessment undertaken of the art gallery. And I'd like to invite Helen to speak to why that is not possibly necessary.
Do we need to do that now? Oh.
It was a question that was raised.
Okay, sorry.
Simply, I've gone back to the definition of historic heritage in the Resource Management Act, and we, to put it bluntly, don't believe there's enough history with that building yet to consider listing it. It's a very recent building, and that is not to say it's not a very important and valuable building and may well be listed in the future. But at present, we do not consider it has enough history to list under the Resource Management Act.
I think it's important that we do discuss this today, because obviously staff are going to go away and do assessments before it came back with the Minister's comments so that we could make decisions. And so can I just ask, is there any other mechanism we have to protect the setting of that building, given its significance to us as a city, if it's not heritage?
When you say setting, do you mean beyond the bounds of the immediate land parcel?
To stop like 60-metre buildings creating shadows over it, or...
I think I have to defer that question to Caroline, who's been looking at the rules related to development on adjacent sites.
Yeah, it's not. What we're saying is that it doesn't meet the threshold for being listed as a heritage building. So the rules about development on adjacent sites would not be appropriate for this. It's really about whether or not there are other mechanisms under the Act, I think, that would need to be addressed. And that then becomes an urban design issue, essentially. It's rather than a heritage issue per se.
Wording that means that we can't list it?
It's not.
I beg your pardon?
What's
Heritage.
the wording that means that we can't list it?
It's not heritage.
History. It's historic heritage.
And
It's
but
not a
what's the
broader sort of
specific
cultural
wording?
heritage listing.
Right. So does that mean that heritage is anything over a certain time frame?
No.
Or?
Well, yes. So is there a rule of thumb, as it were? The Historic Places New Zealand, now Heritage New Zealand, use 30 years as a sort of rule of thumb, although it's not written down anywhere. The youngest building on our listing, I believe, is a 1980s building on the Christ College site.
Yes,
And the next youngest would be the Town Hall, which is 1960s.
So I was saying it's a significant building and should have protection.
There's nothing stopping us saying it's a significant building, but our professional opinion is that it does not reach the threshold to be listed as an historic heritage item, which is what the Resource Management Act provides for. It's a little bit like if the naturalness test for outstanding natural landscapes, if you like. So there are many outstanding natural landscapes in New Zealand, and indeed the view of the Sky Tower from the harbour of Auckland would be one, but it doesn't reach the naturalness criteria, so it doesn't get a listing under the Resource Management Act.
So I personally think we should be trying to get a listing on it. I think it is, whether it's a listing or a designation, but there needs to be some protection around it, because it is actually a pretty important building in our central city, and it really worries me.
Well, only because of the amount of money you've devoted to it.
Oh,
Sorry.
I mean, you
The
guys have
council that
different
decided to base isolate the art
So-
gallery ahead of doing other things is
Yeah.
just, very
Okay.
interesting.
So, like David says, that's my view. You guys disagree, fine. But I actually think what we saw with those apartments going right behind it is not good development for a city, and I think we do need to think about.
But this
having some
chapter
protection.
doesn't allow for it, so...
No, it does.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
We've just had advice that the RMA provides for historic heritage, and it
What is
doesn't
20
meet
years old,
the
25 years,
test.
and the test is.
We've just heard from our professional staff,
test.
which we've just congratulated for
we
the
just
professionalism
heard-
of their
We
assessment.
just heard that there's no finite number of years.
No, I know, but they just said in their professional opinion it doesn't meet the standard. So,
There is one more issue before we move on to then the resolutions for the city centre. On the agenda, I have noted that there was also the remaining resolution for heritage regarding the historic building schedule. You passed everything else in relation to this chapter last Wednesday, which is why we sent out that extra material to you last night. That can be captured in the overall resolution about approving all of the chapters subject to resolutions, if you're happy to leave it at that. Or do you have any further questions about the historic building schedule?
No, I don't think so. I think, well, we already passed all of that. I mean, I found that information was really helpful, and I wondered whether it shouldn't be, I mean, it's obviously not going to be listed in that way in the...
We can put it online, though, as a helpful
Yeah, I think
guide.
it would be useful, because then
Right.
people can see really clearly what it is, and it might be useful to refer ministers to it as well, because it's a simple checklist.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're happy
Yeah.
with the rest of the historic building schedule to be approved with the overall resolution?
Yes.
That's fine, thank you.
On High Street, so we got the information back on High Street. So there's a number of buildings. So again, I was trying to understand why we wouldn't list that as a kind of conservation area. You've still got existing buildings there that are getting protected.
The main reason is because the identification and protection of heritage areas is outside the scope of this district plan review. We've provided for heritage areas in the policy, at a policy level, and we've identified as future work identification and protection of heritage areas.
So how do we get that work happening?
Well, that would need to be a plan change subsequent to the district plan review.
Right. So we'll leave that till April 2016.
But
So-
why can't we do it now?
No, we don't have the timing to do it now, I'm sorry. These are the final chapters that are due to go to the ministers next week, on the 5th of May.
Okay, and then can I just ask, out of the buildings that were identified by the community as being asking for a listing, how many of those have been put in?
Well, we haven't
So
had
from the
consultation on
2005
this.
No, we have. In 2005, we asked the community to tell us which buildings they wanted listed, and we had a public consultation and engagement process, and I just want to know how many of those buildings have been put into our district plan.
I haven't gone back to that previous information because as part of this district plan review we've just relied on research that we'd already done. So we had 60 sites researched and ready to be listed that came out of that work.
Yeah.
But I haven't tracked back the exact numbers of what came out of the
So,
plan review.
but 60 new buildings are being proposed to be listed in this plan based on that earlier work.
Well, it was 60 before the earthquakes, but that's been reduced down to 27
Right.
due to demolitions and lack of research to move them forward at this time. We do have in our work program a rolling program of work to research and add new listings through plan changes, and that's providing for about 30 potential new listings each year.
Right. So, is there any other quicker way than a plan change? Like, can we go for a resource consent? or-
No, to put them in the district plan requires a full plan change process.
For each individual one?
Yes. But we can do them in groups of, say, 10 if the assessment work has been completed.
Right. So you can get a resource consent to remove a heritage building, but you can't get one to add one?
You can get a resource consent to demolish a building, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, well, to remove it from a listing.
To put an item on the schedule,
you
we
can't.
need to...
No, you can't
No.
remove it through a consent process.
You cannot
You can't
change the
remove
You can
district
remove
plan
it by
at all.
demolishing it.
Except through demolition.
All right, so look, we've come to the end of this session, and we're back here at 12 for 1 hour. So how many amendments do we need to get through in the 1 hour? Because what I'm suggesting is that this document's actually incredibly useful, that just scrolls through all of the
Yes.
amendments we need to do. So I've just asked for it to be emailed to me. So shall we get it emailed to everyone so everyone can just look at all of the amendments that are
I
yet to come?
can just, we have it, so I'll copy it and leave it all on your desks.
Well, no,
when we come back.
well, yeah, I mean, I'd quite like a copy now to take with me.
Yeah.
But if we could email it to people and leave a copy on people's desks, then that's fine. But I just think that would speed things up when we come back.
Yes.
How many amendments are left to go?
It's amendments on the city centre, specific purpose zone, flatland recovery, Cranford Basin, coastal environment, and just those consequential amendments,
Yeah,
which
but
shouldn't take any time.
is it much, like...
It's one...
Yeah. Is it going to take a lot of time?
I hope not.
Yeah.
Because the discussions have been had.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Look, what we'll do is we'll adjourn the meeting until 12 o'clock, and when we come back, we will focus on the amendments yet to be completed, and then there's the entire resolution that covers them all off.
Thank
All right?
you.
Thank you.